So I've worked with self-help since last May, so a little bit over a year. I started out working for them during my second year of graduate school at UNC Chapel Hill. I got my master's degree there in city planning, and before that I have a degree in historic preservation from College of Charleston in South Carolina. So I've been with the company since then. I started working on this project right after we had first acquired it, doing some market analysis, and then I just kind of started to work more full-time on it, and I've been full-time here at Revolution Mill since May of this year. I went to Charleston. So I was there at the College of Charleston for 4 years, and it's really hard not to get really interested in preservation being there, but it was something about just the feel of cities and the architecture and the urban fabric that that accompanies historic preservation, and that's kind of what led me to get my master's in city planning, was just to kind of promote downtown redevelopment and preservation of historic structures downtown. The school I went to was founded in the 1770s, so it's very old, and just being surrounded by that kind of historic fabric all day, every day, is motivation enough, I think, to get interested and kind of pursue that professionally. When we acquired the property in September of 2012, it had already been, if you can imagine, about halfway finished. So it had previously been developed before we acquired it. We had made a partial loan to the project, so we were interested in the project in the beginning. Then in 2012, we acquired the project, we took it over, and now we're finishing up renovations and redevelopment on essentially what is the back half of the structure, and I'll show you that part. Right now is completely gutted. There's nothing in there right now, but we've been tightening it up with windows and gave it a new roof, and we're getting ready to redevelop the back portion for residential apartments and other potential new tenants. And then another part of it is what was formerly the Nussbaum Center for Entrepreneurship. That part's also gutted now and being prepared for redevelopment. So
we kind of found a sense of like a really familial kind of community of people. And a lot of that is still here in the Mill Village, which is great. So here we're entering building A. And when this is all completed, this wall will be opened up, it will be glass, but because it's an active construction site, we're just keeping it closed off. Okay. This is the first floor. There's 2 floors above this. So when the Nussbaum Center was in here, this was technically considered within the FEMA flood zone, because Buffalo Creek runs right under this building right next to us. So nobody developed it, but the map has since been updated such that we can develop it. So this is sort of where we're hoping to do a lot more of that creative artist spaces, co-working, sort of like production uses. Not just another floor of office space.
Well, this has been a great project to be involved in because it's so big and it encompasses sort of every aspect of a real estate development project and really a community development project. So I've been able to be involved in a lot of different elements of the project, whether it's financially or community outreach, marketing, giving tours. It's just a little bit of everything, and it's just a great project to kind of be involved in from start to finish.
Whoa.
This is the back half of the project, which is what we call, this is building G, and then there's F and E, and we'll walk you down there. This is the part that's going to be developed as apartments. And actually, we set up framing for 2, I don't want to say model apartments, but yeah, they're going to be set up as model apartments so that people can visualize easier what it is we're talking about. So we've proposed about 100 apartments on this floor, and there's a floor below us as well.
Do you know how many machines were in here?
No, I don't know. I mean,
there's
it was wall to wall, kind of just packed in. This is our building I, which we're hoping to be our future brew pub / restaurant area.
Okay.
And it sits right along Buffalo Creek.
So that's good. That's actually pretty cool. So you're gonna have apartments here, and then they could just walk over and grab a beer.
That's yeah, that's the idea. And you'll see at the end of building E when we go over there. It's what we have slated as light industrial right now, which could be any number of things, but we're hoping, possibly getting a brewery or someone to partner in either brew pub restaurant.
but those are destructives. So we'll have to see how that works. When we first got in here, actually, you can see this is called a monitor roof, this one that's kind of stepped up. And when we got in here, well, these wooden beams you see, they were sort of covered over to create a floor. And the monitor roof that area was just used as storage. So it actually was completely covered. It wasn't providing any light into the structure. And all of these windows were bricked in or cinder blocked in. So there's, no light.
Man.
No 10-foot windows.
See, they don't build them like that anymore.
No. No, and this is amazing. All of these wooden beams and, that are original 12 by 12 sort of beams and the wooden floor planks also. This is also a really good example of slow burn construction, the way it was built.
Yes.
With these solid wood beams and then the solid masonry walls, and the masonry walls all have fiber doors that were made out of steel and closed. So it would take a very long time for just one section of the building to burn until they went spread. So this building across the creek is Olympic Mill. We just acquired that recently, so we have sort of this whole campus to work with. But Olympic Mill was opened, in the 50s, and that's where they produced chemical dyes that they used to dye the fabric they're producing on site here, which was really a new practice, and almost all the other mills in the South had to send their fabrics up north to be dyed. So we actually have a dye house here in this building that I can show you, and that's pretty rare for a textile structure in the South. Quite overgrown. Hopefully rehab that bridge.
So they'd be able to walk across, or... Now what was over here?
That's Olympic Mill, where I told you they made the chemical dyes for the flannel.
Okay, so they had the dyes over there, they had the fabric over here.
Yeah, and then in that dye house I was showing you is where they... house I was telling you about, so you see that big red tank in the back that was originally used to dye fabrics too. We're keeping that, obviously. It's a cool part of the space. And so this is where they actively dye the fabric there. It's very ominous, I assure you.
Pretty gnarly.
Yeah, I thought that'd be a good thing for you to see. So this is what the second and third floors look like, and when this was the Nussbaum Center, they developed it in the 80s, but it was pretty typical kind of 80s development for the time. They used drop tile ceilings. They enclosed a lot of these wooden beams in the walls and painted them. And so you can see we came in here and we just gutted everything out. But each floor is about, I want to say probably about 40,000 square feet of space, which is something that's really hard to find in downtown Greensboro. So we think this is just, we don't really want to cut this up if someone could use it open.
Now what's your idea for this one? What's the plan?
This is one of those kind of mixed idea spaces. The third floor we're definitely kind of reserving for a tenant that needs that much space and wants to be here. But this is an area where we'd love to see a continuation of that active use. Artist studio, whether we want to do co-working space or do sort of a nonprofit co-working space, something more active and
pays a little bit more homage to the fact that this used to be an industrial site and people made things here, and we want to kind of get people back out here to make things. So this is what we'd like to see up here.
It's something that people really identify with. Just being involved in this project, I've talked to so many people who are just excited to see the structure staying and staying active, and whether they want to come in here and be a tenant or be a resident, they're just happy to see the structure being redeveloped and being used as a vital part of Greensboro again.
Yeah, it looks like they're moving a lot of dirt down here, but we can walk out. Hard about dealing with properties that had no zoning codes or building codes when they were built.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we have to do. So part of the beauty of doing a historic renovation is to try and keep the building or take the building back to the time that it was being utilized. So keeping things historically accurate. So for instance, you wouldn't do a lot of ornate decoration and fancy frills on the outside of this building. This was an industrial building, and that's how it was used. So when we developed the building, we were required by the Secretary of the Interior through the Parks Department not to do any embellishment or to create a sense of false history, excuse me. So we have to be pretty careful in using sort of industrial finishes and not being too ornate with what we're doing here.
And not that it's really retroactive, but since you asked, I'll point it out. Things like these carriage lamps, these never would have been found in a structure like this. So that's those kinds of things, and maybe like really ornate ironwork that's on the stairwells. We're kind of having to minimize or sort of undo some of that to make it more appropriate with the time that it really would have been an active structure. So carriage lights are more like 1800s New Orleans. They were textile mill in the 1800s.
One of the last expansions of the property that took place in the 50s and 60s was when, with the invention of climate control and air conditioning and synthetic light. So all these beautiful windows you see that were used for light and ventilation, they didn't serve a purpose anymore. Actually, they were counterintuitive because they let in light and heat when we were trying to keep things darker and cooler. So essentially, these buildings were cased over in a modern brick sleeve, and all the windows were bricked in and they were covered with this veneer. So what we've been having to do since we came onto the project is sort of peeling back that veneer, unbricking windows, recovering what original materials we can, reusing them, being really careful with the original materials not to damage them, and removing a lot of the later modern additions that had taken place.
So you can imagine when we got here, none of these windows were in. They were just all open, exposed to the elements for about 18 months. So it was a whole nother climate in there. And we finally got them sealed up.
We're not selling space, it would all be rented. And so part of my job here has been to figure out how we should be developing the units, how to compete with what's existing and coming online in downtown Greensboro right now, which is a lot of really cool stuff. But we think we have a pretty cool product to offer. There's exposed bricks, high ceilings, original wood floors. We don't have a target market per se. I mean, I've toured a lot of people through the space, and I can tell you it's people like me, young professionals, all the way to people like my parents and older who just, people connect with the space and they want to be in a space like this. It's not a certain segment of the population, really.
Where we're framing the model apartments. So actually, we'll get a first look at these. This one on this side is there's lots of birds. This one on this side is what is going to be the 2-bedroom apartment, and this one on this side would be 1 bedroom. That's kind of, we're building those out so people can imagine. Or not imagine, they can see.
So when I first came onto the project last summer, I walked through it for the first time in the back part of the building, and the roof was such that if it had rained, sometime during the week, it would continue raining for the following week. It was just sort of an internal rainforest climate because the roof was so compromised. And there's certain challenges about working with brick walls and getting internet signals through brick walls and other things like that, running electric, running fiber optics through the brick walls. But there's nothing insurmountable that we've come across yet, so we welcome the challenge.
Now, what is this up here? Looks almost like a curtain.
Oh, this track? This
Yeah, the
is
track.
original to the facility. You can see that right there is a fan, and the fan would rotate on this track, continually blowing lint off of the looms. It wouldn't catch fire, but it blew the lint into the workers' lungs instead.
A little detrimental.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can see sort of the remnants of a track there, but they were continuous along the ceiling in almost all the buildings.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's a good thing to point out. When they acquired the property, you can see these two distinct separate structures that they were roofed over and covered internally and externally. So what we've been doing a lot this summer is peeling off the roof and uncovering the windows and the walls with the original bricks to create. This is originally what it would have been like, an internal courtyard, some sort of internal space for people to use. So we're going to landscape that back up.
This is a cone. Benjamin Briggs, he would say this on his tours, that Greensboro was a defining town for textiles, and this building was a defining building for Greensboro. So I think that means something, and I think that preserving this building and making it an active part of the Greensboro community again, I hope we're playing a role in kind of revitalizing Greensboro a little bit.
This used to be this building over here is now owned by A&T, but it used to be the building where they printed the Mill Village newspaper called the Textorian. And you can see that's been altered a little bit in the modern era. But
And they had things like their upcoming events and parties or whatever.
It was really more of a community building. So this side of the building, there's 3 floors. This used to be the Coen Brothers administrative offices. And so this is the top floor, obviously. That's an original dumpster that they would have used. These shelves would have been used for keeping the books. To send messages up and down. But yeah, very primitive sort of email. If you look up here, this is the building we were just standing in. You can see it was constructed right over Buffalo Creek. And that was used probably so they could dump chemicals and dyes into the water, but it was built right over the creek. That's we don't know what we're doing in this space yet. I keep saying it's going to be my future office, but it seems to be fine.
Keep pushing for that. Now, is this ladder, or is any of this original, or is this kind of...
Yeah, it's original.
Okay.
Feels like this, or when people want to come through and take pictures. Because it's great. We'll have, data points at every point in time to see what the space was, what it is empty, and then hopefully how great it is when we're done.
It's a chapter in its history.
Yes. Good chapter. There used to be this really ornate black iron fence that went along the sidewalk all in front of this building. And it kind of made it feel like a prison, because here where we start to go, downhill. It was like the whole length of the windows, and it felt like a little like prison. When I first got out here, this cafe wasn't here. There was nowhere to get coffee on campus, and I thought that was just the worst part.
Oh no.
Like I said, this part was already done when I came in, and it's done in that really kind of ornate fashion that I was talking about, which people love. I think this is a beautiful event center. I don't think we would change anything about it, but I'm not sure, if it was originally a split level like this, or if they just cut off purpose for it. What he says.
Greensboro, since its inception in 1808, has gone through a whole host of identities. We're named for General Nathaniel Greene, who fought the Battle of Guilford Courthouse in 1781. The Coen brothers certainly made their mark on Greensboro. And during the 1960s, Greensboro was known for its civil rights movement, most notably the Woolworth sit-ins. So what's next for Greensboro? What's our identity? And where do we go from here?
I've been really, I don't want to say surprised, but I've been really excited by what I've seen since I've been here full-time in Greensboro. And I think what I'm seeing is a resurgence in downtown Greensboro and a resurgence in the arts, actually. And I think that's going to be very successful as people continue to kind of push this sense of place in Greensboro, and however that manifests, if it's arts or if it's music or if it's technology. I think people are investing in Greensboro right now rather than investing in Cone Denim, but I think it's great. As Benton would say, this is the view you want to take a picture of. So this is what's technically building up. And then this one over here is E. It may be the shelving was added in the 1920s.
Right, yeah.
Board in the back, but I think it was part of the Renaissance.
It's kind of cool. It reminds me of like Harry Potter.
Yeah. And then, if you look out this window, you can see that's proximity.
Oh.
And so pretty much connecting that mill, this mill, and then this mill. The White Oak Denim Mill.
Okay.
It's just continual mill village. And a lot of them still exist